All the synoptic gospels have Jesus pushed, actually says in some versions, thrust into the desert by the Spirit after his baptism. As if, now that he's received his mission, he had to wrestle with its implications, as we do once we receive our mission from the Lord. And of course, we don't know exactly what happened. Mark just says he was with the wild beasts, nothing else. Was it that Jesus might have shared at some point exactly what happened? Maybe. Certainly nobody was there with a video camera, as if they would have seen anything had they been. It was an interior drama. Now, more than likely, it was what the gospel writers understood to be the likely and inevitable human temptation for someone given a mission, and hence for us all. And what are the temptations? You notice it's not about Mary Magdalene, the last temptation of Christ in that sense. All of these are about power. The use of power, which it could easily be argued is the fundamental challenge and therefore temptation of our human lives. I mean, in Jesus' case, look at the tradition. His miracles, which he later performed, were called in the Gospel deeds of power, dunamis, deeds of power. And the very word, dunamis, is also used for one of the angelic hosts. You know, powers, virtues, principalities, dominions, obviously. And when we're speaking about cosmic powers, spiritual powers, it's about power. It's the whole structure of the universe is based on power and energy. How could it not be fundamental? God himself is called, in our tradition and others, omnipotent, all-powerful. So we better understand power, what its challenges and uses are. That was Jesus' challenge and ours. And we don't have to live very long or look very far today or in any age to see how poorly people deal with power. The challenge is literally too great. Was it Lord Upton or one of those English aristocrats who ought to know about this kind of thing? Said that, power corrupts. Very famously, he said, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I'm sure you've heard that. And it's totally true. There is practically no one in the history of the world who's used power well. Across the board, always. That's why Jesus had to deal with it. Look at the empire. It's all about empires, not to mention the Christian empire, but all empires throughout history, the brutality, the avarice, the aggression, all over earth, all over bits of land. Who owns this? Who's going to have one empire? Then one empire passes to another, conquered and overrun with bloodshed and fire and rape and destruction. It's the history of the world. One empire after another. One more diluted than the preceding. About what human life is for and what it's about. Domination. Having this great power. Then emperors and kings plotting against each other, and sometimes in the same country, who's going to have the power. In the church as well. The attraction and allure and temptation of power, inescapable. One empire after another. Look at today, all the dictators throughout the world, often in the poorest countries where the people have nothing. We send them aid and they build palaces and swimming pools and make bank accounts in Switzerland. Meanwhile, they're fighting with each other, plotting. What is this all about? Why cannot we escape this? It basically comes down to the little ego, the insecure, greedy, aggressive, self-asserting, tiny, little insecure ego that wants to make itself great and big. That's the devil, if you like. That's the temptation and the tempter. That's what gets us. We have to deal with who we really are, which is powerless. And how do we react to that in the world? Do we clamor and scheme and do all sorts of things to get power? And not just political power, economic power, fame, money. There are all types of power. Twine is trying to assuage the ego, which is just an illusion to begin with. How can it not be vapor and smoke? But power is real, so how do we deal with this? Well, Jesus shows us. First of all, we see the temptations today, in the gospel I mean, using your power for your own benefit. Turn this rock into stone, and this rock into bread for yourself. I see plenty of that. Or do something risky, showy, for fame. Throw yourself down. And notice, the devil quotes Scripture. Since Jesus has been answering in terms of Scripture, he quotes Scripture. Yes. How much violence and how much power has been misused in the name of God, and still is today throughout history. Whether you talk about Islam, clear examples, or Christianity, or any other. It's God's will that we conquer South America. Is that so? So this gospel should have been, and should still be a reminder that we can quote Scripture in the name of our greed and violence. And then, of course, the grandest temptation of all this will be yours, the whole world. Rome, Hitler, Stalin, Napoleon, Caesar, all this will be yours. The whole world will be yours if you just worship me. Because you can't acquire the whole world without worshiping the devil. Period. So that's the challenge. And Jesus says himself, what good is it if you gain the whole world and suffer the loss of yourself, which is what will happen if you try to do that. And he shows by his example, first of all, resisting the temptations, but then using his power to heal and help, be at the service of others, constantly, always. Fleeing from the power when they want to make him king, but always there to help and nourish and heal. And he says, the Son of Man is not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And he tells his disciples, arguing about who's the greatest, and who's going to sit at his right hand or left hand. No, you know how it is among the Gentiles, among the rulers of the world. They make their power felt, they lord it over them. It shall not be so among you. No. Whoever would be first among you must be the last. Whoever would rule and be great among you must be the servant, and the slave is the actual word, the slave of everyone. When has anyone, any Christian, ever taken that seriously? How few there are, even among Christians, who take that seriously. Real power is to be the last and the servant of all. That's what it means to have power. That's what it means for Jesus to have power. Coming to us in the Eucharist, hidden, powerless. It's what it means for God to have power. So much so that it's a scandal to the unbeliever, and sometimes to the believer. If God is all-powerful, how can he permit this or that to happen? God doesn't intervene and make his power felt. He's the prime example of what Jesus is teaching. God's power is quiet, working in, giving life and giving healing and giving growth quietly, without blowing trumpets in front of him. Bringing the world to life and to make it grow and evolve. Bringing us to life and making us grow and evolve and change. From within, gently respecting our dignity, respecting our freedom, respecting our own power. Making us feel power as a gift from him, because power is a gift. So people are scandalized. Why doesn't he intervene with a thunderbolt? Because that's not what power is. That's not what God is. We've mistaken the whole thing. We've misread the whole thing. We've misunderstood the whole thing. Maybe at the end of the world it'll be a big surprise how that does happen. Casting the evil into hell? Is that so, you think? Interesting. So we have to grapple with this in our own lives. Whether you're talking about political power, economic power, corporations, fame, or families. Power in families. Same dynamic. Do you make your power felt? Are you like some governments who say to the children, we're doing this for your own good. You can't do this or that. We're protecting you. Well, maybe in some cases. But in the end, that true power that empowers, true power empowers, you give them the space and the freedom to grow, to make their own mistakes, ultimately, just as God gives us the freedom to make our own mistakes for the sake of greater growth and maturity. One reason God allows all this to happen? Perhaps. So, as parents, you can misuse your power terribly. You know that from experience as child or parent. So it's a really important issue. All of us have some kind of power. All of us. How do we use it? Do we use it to bolster our poor, insecure, grasping, aggressive little egos? Or do we use it in the service, pouring out our life and our love and our compassion for justice and truth to the whole world, beginning with our families, our communities, our jobs, our church, our world? Are we at the service? Greater love has no one than to lay down his life for his friend. That's how the all-powerful acts. How about us?